In 1794, Maximilien Robespierre, the architect of the Terror, the man who sent 1,500 people to the guillotine, was himself strapped to the same wooden plank he had sanctioned. His neck met the same blade without apology, and this was not an accident. It was the system he built doing exactly what it was designed to do: replicate, consume, expunge every last architect along. Far from a quirk of history, this pattern slashes across every high-conviction project that insists it's marching toward redemption. The fanatics who die chanting the same slogans, the enthusiastic burnouts of every cult, the burned-out whistleblowers who destroy their own movements from the inside, the committed artists who become art targets. The strange alchemy is mysterious. Why does the world's rage so often turn against itself? In occupied territories, factions that scream allegiance during a crossfire end up tearing their own out, always changing from internal traitors. Activist communities usually shed their frontliners into burnout deserts until the squares are teeming with rage at first light, then empty by nightfall, leaving just exhausted doubters and whispered hashtags at dawn. Accused factions from old circles spiral into accusing one another of insufficient purity, and just a fraction survive leadership intact after a year-long campaign. The pain is immense. On the surface, people sacrifice everything: jobs, security, school, only to learn quickly that the very rightness they included saints will not spare them. Once the cult convinces people that purity is a well-cleaned stare of abstractions, authentic life turns out to be the one thing it never burns. This is not some relic. It is a warning that the same pattern is being scaled and replicated today at an industrial intensity. The first mechanism is a meta-doctrine. Rebellion reinforces the structure of strength it wars against. Many dedicated founders notice that circles inspired by radical love slowly spiral toward a schedule of shared rage. Shifts in social ideals reproduce the patterns they thought to submerge. Decades before academic textbooks, every true tradition and order teaches the same caution. The most deceptive organizer is the one who follows the rules too well, and the moment a government becomes its own enemy, we must watch for it watching us. Every crusade gradually freezes its own maxims into non-disposable vocabulary. Justice, vengeance, momentum. Those words become non-negotiable, and because they are empty vessels, whoever controls their voice also controls who they condemn. Once the movement lives by unquestioned commands, the sign of belief becomes treating the founders' feeling as the law. This is the exact lethal hierarchy Nietzsche diagnosed as spiritual violence of the spirit. The structure demands a god because without the god the structure disappears, so the god moves, and ultimately the disciples devour themselves. Our war has shifted from dogmas to online action. A nation bans a song, others assume obedience. Senses become identical, yet history's machine is the same. By sacrificing exactly however is asked, the faithful exhaust themselves and turn inward until the exterior target vanishes. The second mechanism is how we become isolated. Any faction quickly learns to display symbolic allegiance. Group chat demands a photo proof. Profile images demand a frameless slogan. Empathy is branded sympathizer code, and anyone not tweeting the trend earns a tweetload of hate, and the main market is authenticity. Compare the oldest watchdogs. They had a clock. The devoted had to vanish just as fast. Now every internal mole contest moves at warp speed. A single comment taken out of context clips and circulates before deadline. The pile-on lasts just days, then the outrage market moves on. The result: real voices become ever smaller, fearful of even gesturing a joke about a city. Because they know now 1,000 bots tuned to mention keyword will read that as treasured destruction. Out of self-protection, the committed morph into slightly cleverer masks of conformity, until one day they cannot distinguish between their own convictions and those they adopted, so they would not be targeted. In the end, they die of loneliness, still perfectly persuaded, perfectly empty. Why? Because alienation is the natural fruit. The most spirited engines of a community end up revolting against the machine that created them. A dedicated organizer backfires into a wreck of psychological guilt and social distance, only to conclude with the irony that the revolutionary who speaks for the people is rarely allowed by the people to speak authentically. Digital movements replicate that instantly. An exhausted activist who once coordinated entire protest schedules cannot finish a day without anxiety and has no one to call for help because her friends have already labeled her a hater. The one weapon offered by her compatriots is the same guillotine. The third mechanism is how we rewrite the story. Every dogma declares there lives a scapegoat of supreme corruption, ideally few, ideally hidden. The former nation needed an external king. Today, the master narrative does not watch us directly, but it still demands an enemy the observer can blame. Just as tribes tell themselves that they have no pattern, just righteous anger, but focus too long on anyone's feed, and you will discover the same hidden faith. They respond to a trendy corruption that must be cleansed. Notice the symmetry. The president pounds about institutional corruption. An immigrant whispers almost the exact wording. Both are watching drama. Both see the same invisible monster. Once the story is alive, the actual human being who refuses the role gets cast as that monster. The rebel against our leader marks herself as a resistor. And now the dragon burns her, not for what she did, because her crime is remaining present and uncontrollable. Eventually, in the contemporary wars of our age, there is no internal target. The dragon never ends because the mind demands it. Today, the dragon wears a piece of equipment. A mother's phone, an algorithm, but it is still the old dragon. It requires a scapegoat continuously, and a permanent victim keeps defining believers as perfect. Lose the scapegoat and we are just a person with dignity. Finally, the speed of belief after the collapse in control is the ultimate form of failure. A strong faction is more resourceful than living, or it rewards actual promises. When ideals seem unattainable, the truth is that working groups are kept alive by a slow, boring work of creating. As any historian knows, when a king's prophecy fails, he does not lose. Instead, he claims the test was of purity, or the prayer was incomplete, or a hidden enemy delayed the promise. The central danger is not loss but acceleration. The failed timetable only raises the urgency of preparation, and the bigger the time angle, the higher the sacrifice. Old prophets miss dates. The modern digital mill may only miss 24 hours. Tomorrow's version. Watch as the internet insists that the world would be saved if we just sacrifice a few more million. This is the architecture of a trap known as apocalyptic sprint. The date cannot be wrong, so the remaining faithful must now give not just their time, but their entire life. And if they do, what have they obtained? Not reality awareness, just permission to lose every relation they loved. The bleakest record of my own research is not the cruelty of high leadership. It is how willingly volunteers walk into the chamber simply because they were taught a glorious sacrifice is the highest proof of love. You need look at your own ideological habits right now to see this logic. How many phrases do you repeat exactly, not careful that it comes from a curated account? How many debates leave you half numb because the goal is simply survival? When did your last mistake feel slightly real? These are not neutral experiences. The machine does not understand nuance. It only understands the chance to make the next fanatic. Each day we produce billions of lit-up phrases, stories, arguments, commentary, and each phrase is a micro-ritual, promising virtue, belonging, power. And every single phrase leaves a muscle mark behind. So the solution is not to resist the flame, but to re-engineer the internal structure. We must do 3 shifts and 3 adjustments. First, rebuild the story away from sacrifice and back towards structural stability. Every meaningful project must build a constitution before building a command, and enforce it on the stars harder than on the newest member, especially between insiders of each rank. So the formal leaders cannot be treated above their own rules. If you build no rule of restraint toward the inner circle, you have already marked its leader as your future target, because the community always feeds on the highest energy. Celebrate loyalty like a god, and it would not be long before you are eating subjects. Second, never let your devotion outsource criticism to the founder's ear. Cults disable the central therapist by telling the underbeliever their doubt comes from an enemy, so the doubt never lands. The fix is to institutionalize a space or process where the individual power can be safely truthful inside the umbrella, even if the truth is truly negative about leadership. This design may seem to attack authenticity, but it is the only one that prevents tomorrow's internal purge. Because the true destroyer is not the complainer. It is the hidden complaint that has no channel and therefore has to explode. Third, reward the gradual success of staying human. When we celebrate only the highest power of sacrifice, we celebrate future emptiness. We need concrete rewards for the small acts of resistance. The community leader who admits their timeline is not working enough. The rest of us who refuse to pile on a colleague to defend their level of care. The entire friend group that walks away immediately from the friend when they are first called narcissist, instead of giving them no space to mature twice. Historical proof is immense. The only crews that survived their own success were those who turned quickly from the mission to maintaining their kind members. The alternative, the machine that burned out every member it could turn into an instrument, is exactly the shape of every early cult. Pause on this. When a crusade turns on its believers, we know proof the Creator did not love them. It is a paradox resolved, though. You can dedicate life to a mission or dedicate life to yourself. If actual humanity is the engine, the crusade will eat it. If the human is primary fuel, you will always have a community, but only sometimes will it choose perfection. I see a clue of this final truth in our time's loudest moral screaming. They are, without exception, communities that taught the greatest value was the willingness to destroy everything you ever wanted. The call now is not a naive wish or more anger. It is a structural invitation to rebuild belief as culture that serves biology, not religion that serves dogma. The goal is not to dismiss correction of justice, but to ask before each fight, will this build an institution capable of lasting without eating its people? Or will it build another machine that will need new fuel again? Look closely at your own tribe, its followers, its heroes, its structures, its scapegoats, and you may discover the real fight is to prevent the hero from turning into the structure's next fuel. That decision made daily will eventually require a stronger creed than any campaign, but it may also permit you to remain whole long enough to see your own victory.